Welcome back to TWTV for another video verdict, coming to you from outside the home of East Anglian football, Portman Road, and we're here to give you some views of an Ipswich Town game in the Premier League. And I'm joined by TWTD writer Kallum Brisset. Welcome, Kallum.
Thank you.
Fresh from a European tour, which we maybe will touch on a little bit later.
It was certainly much more warmer.
Yeah, probably warmer. I was going to say, we suddenly got some warm weather outside Selhurst Park, but it has gone absolutely Baltic outside today. But let's come back to your little trip a bit later on, because we're here to talk about Ipswich 2, Nottingham Forest 4. And Kallum, it's the life's been sucked out of us a little bit. It was... You felt the crowd kind of towards the end. You know, the realization that it's now a two probably taller task for us as a team and as a club. I guess the build up was two teams in very different places. You'll see some footage earlier. We were walking past the station hotel where the Forest fans were, and you could just sense the buoyancy and the energy in their fan base and their singing throughout the game, and they're vying with Arsenal, to try and get close to them, and we're vying to try and hold on to Wolves, which we probably have now lost that battle. Talk us through, what happened today, Kallum. Talk us through your views of the game and the key moments, please.
Yeah, I mean, there ended up being 6 goals in the game. Didn't feel like that sort of game. We scored 2 of them, which I think probably flattered us a bit, to be honest. I didn't see where we were going to score, particularly in that second half. But we managed to, after some of the substitutions came on, when the game was obviously dead at that point. But the damage was done in a 10-minute spell in the first half, really. The first half an hour was, I wouldn't say even, I'd probably say Forest edged it, but the game was fairly competitive in terms of not a lot between the sides, and then we just get carved open by little bits of quality and individual errors. Which has been the story of the season. But for it to happen 3 times in the space of 10 minutes is what really cost us. And at that point, when you're 3-0 down at home, the atmosphere goes completely flat. It turns the other way. And the game's over as a contest at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Fun enough, I called a Forest mate at half time, and he was watching and listening to the game on their local radio. And the local Forest, his view was, it was a fairly even game for 30 minutes. And it was a technical game, was the word used, and it was quite deep. We were carrying some threat, but I didn't really feel like that watching it live. I thought unlike the Palace performance, I don't think we came out with that sort of belief, and I just don't think the players believed, and I really didn't feel like where the goal was coming from. And let's pick out a couple of things. Actually, let's just play back on that. Was it player quality? Was it player physicality? Talk us through what happened on 30 minutes. It was a well taken goal, wasn't it? Or it was a scramble goal for the first one.
Yes, I'm trying to remember which one the first one was.
It was in the box, and then someone sort of on the half volley put it in. Yeah,
yes, that was on. It was the Milenkovic goal.
Yeah,
I think you mentioned the physicality. I think that's a big part of what it comes down to. We know Forest are one of the more physical teams in the league, but even against anyone, we don't have the quality, the physical quality to compete in the Premier League, and I think that's quite a big problem. And
Elanga showed some incredible physicality today and pace, and we'll come back on to
that. And that's another thing that we don't have. We don't have the sort of player who's able to kind of do what Elanga did today, which was a shame. The first goal, like you say, I mean, probably a little bit of communication error. Jacob Greaves probably has to clear it. He's caught ball watching for the second one, maybe the third one, the one where it was Wolfie lost the flick on, and he ended up coming off at half time. He had a really poor half, and Ciso had a poor half. He wasn't the only one, but he was guilty of holding onto the ball for far too long.
We've talked too many times on this show about the 3 attacking players behind Delap not making the right decisions and giving the ball away cheaply. It was happening all over the place in that first half. And Ciso was probably the worst actor, but Amari did it early on.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick pause and just run through the lineup. It's quite attacking lineup. Take us through from end to end, and let's really get into the players and the player performances.
Yes, it was just one change from the Palace game. So it was Palmer stayed in goal. The back 4 was the same. It was Cajuste and Phillips in midfield, and I thought those two were probably probably the two best Town players on the pitch. I use best lightly. I don't think anyone played particularly well, but two low knees in the midfield who, by all accounts, won't be here next season. Possibly sums up a little bit of the situation that we're in. And then the three behind, it was Jack Clark was brought out of the side, Amari came back in. That was the one change behind Liam Delap. And I think those three in particular. You've got Philogene, you've got Hutchinson, and you've got Enciso. That's what I'm talking about in terms of physicality. It just completely getting bullied. There's no way through. There was the odd touch to get away, and then you kind of barged off the ball by one of their midfield players and one of their centre halves, who are obviously units. And there was just no way through. We didn't test Matt Sells enough. There were a few off-target shots that did he make a save? I mean, I know he scored twice, but I don't think there were any efforts other than that forced him into a save from memory. And that's what it came down to.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you see with Forest is that they are very good at, they sort of sit deep, don't they? They've got a lovely solidity in that shape. And it ended up with us playing, which we don't often see with Ipswich. We ended up playing a lot about in front of our box. Wolfenden was sort of standing there, like not knowing what to do, pushing up. At times, Palmer was coming out, pushing up and up.
And it was too slow.
Yeah. And then again, this thing we've talked about, there wasn't the speed of ball going out. You're absolutely right. Cajuste and Phillips were excellent. I thought, not excellent, but, they had a strong game. They were moving it. They were breaking the lines a little bit. But, the difference to Forest, they've got that solidity, but when they go. And they've got that pace. And they were, and another thing to point out, they're really overloading our right side, their left side. And Philogene was doing okay defensively, but you're so right. He's just very lightweight.
With Philogene, he was an option within the first kind of 25, 30 minutes of the game, and he was never being found. I don't remember him touching the ball in the first 25 minutes or so. Yeah. And then when he did start to get into the game, he then just started giving the ball away.
Cheap turnover. Quite lightweight in that group. Amari is so much better on the right. I mean, let's be clear. Amari is better on the right. For me, he's not working as a 10 and hasn't been really working as a 10. I was surprised because Enciso was out on the left and Minari was in the middle, wasn't he? But yeah, that the problems for me was probably some mistakes and lightweight from Greaves in the back, and Davis as well was a bit loose at times, and those three. Let's just quickly pick up on the stats. Possession, we got 56%. I think that's because they went quite a bit deeper, didn't they, Forest? And we sort of came on them in the second half when they'd already won the game.
They had the game wrapped up for more than half of the game. So
shots, we had 11. There were 4 on target, but we had no clear-cut chance. We had 6 corners. I think the frustration for me, Kallum, is on twofold. One is, I get why McKenna wants to give Greaves and Philogene pitch time because they've cost a lot of money and they're his players, But
and I think Philogene's been better in the last few weeks. I thought today was poor.
Yeah, I know he's been okay.
I think recently he's been okay. I didn't have a problem with that selection. I think it's time for Cameron Burgess to start. I thought on the left of the defence. I thought about that before the game, and then when it got into the game, I think, and obviously that was the change that was made at half time, which I think was quite telling of how the first half went.
You could just see Burgess's dictating play. He's dominant. He seems to be he's faster than you think. And I just thought the relationship with Leif Davis is so key. And I just was looking at going, we just look better with him there. My second frustration, and I'll play it back to you, is the lateness of the subs. I know the game had already gone, but why are we bringing them on so late?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I get it. I mean, like you say, the game had gone, so in that aspect I kind of get it, but at the same time it flips the other way. Once the game's gone, try something different for 30, 35 minutes rather than 10.
Because let's talk about that we look
better when
Hurst, Broadhead.
It's difficult to compare it though, because at that point it's 3-0, 4-1, whatever the score was at the time.
The game's gone, but actually what I like with when Clark came on and Broadhead and Hurst, we started to see moments of McKenna ball. There was a little bit of dynamic passing going on between the likes of Cajuste, Phillips and Broadhead and Hurst. And our goal, the Cajuste goal, which was excellent, it's one of the best goals that we've scored this season. We did really open them up through a movement it went from Clark to Broadhead to Hurst, didn't it, to Cajuste. I mean, talk us through what difference did those subs make?
Yeah, I mean, they brought more energy. in terms of the individuals, you just get the feeling that the individuals that came on have often been the ones who have kind of been here on this kind of whole journey. Your likes of your Broadhead and your Hurst and players like that, and you could tell that they understood the team a bit more, had the belief that they know what it takes to score, to attack, have some ideas of how we want to play. And to be saying that in comparison to some of the other players in March, you know, we've had quite a while this season. We're not still bedding in players on you know, week 4, 5, 6 of the season. So that's
I get where you're coming from. You know, Philogene is fairly new, if you know what I mean. He does look a bit lost in the system. I thought Clark, actually, when he came on, he did seem to know what was going on.
I think he's been all right. I think he can probably feel a little bit hard done by to have been dropped.
And maybe that's the point. Maybe if we'd started with Burgess, maybe if we started with Clark. I think it's just disappointing in Cisso's performance. We brought him in to be a bit of a game changer, a difference maker. It's not really happened. And today was not a good first half from him. Okay, let's close out then. So, atmosphere, I thought the Forest fans were good. What was it like in the North Stand?
Wasn't brilliant from the off. I think there's that growing sense of the lack of belief that kind of it's probably going to be over. And I'm talking before the game. Now, I think there's no doubt the season is over now at this point. And certainly when the 3 quick-fire goals go, as I mentioned earlier, within the space of 10 minutes or so, the atmosphere goes really flat. There's not a lot else to say on that front. And
hearing you're going down with a Leicester is a real twisted knife to the heart, isn't it? You know, and poor Ed Sheeran was getting a bit of abuse as well, although his Panini stickers being given away with programmes were the longest queues I've ever seen for programmes at Portman Road. It was quite something. So, final summary from you, Kallum. What can we do? You know, we've got an unbelievable 2.5 week break now until we play Bournemouth away.
Can't lose for 2.5 weeks.
We can't lose for 2.5 weeks. Yes, let's look on the bright side, Kallum. What do we do when we get back? What does McKenna and the team want to achieve in the remaining 9 games?
Well, the team will want to keep believing and keep pushing until it's mathematically over. They're not going to give up now for 9 games, but I'd like to see kind of, I don't know, because often in this situation, teams you start saying, "Oh, build for what we might want to see next season," things like that. But I mentioned earlier, I thought our 2 better performances with the 2 midfielders, and they're not going to be here next season. So how we go about that, I don't know. Do you want to just keep changing it? We changed the team more than any other side in the Premier League this season, so I wouldn't want to, you know, keep chopping and changing the team again to try new things that inevitably probably won't work still. So I don't know.
I guess what we want to do is get our first win of 2025. I mean, that's a goal. We need a target. We need a first win of 25. We need to score some more goals, and it was at least heartening to get some goals at the end. I get the point you're making that. You know, he probably wants to stick with Philogene and give him game time because he probably sees him in future. You know what I mean, as a future player. So maybe that's one of the elements. So just to finish then, Kallum, so your European tour, you saw Barcelona in the Champions League and Lazio in
Europa League.
It's a bit of a tour of Europe. What was the highlight of those? Which was the better game? Which was the better ground? And what was the highlight?
Barcelona was the better game, better quality, better players, and then. They're playing at the Olympic Stadium, though, aren't they? Which wasn't too great.
Because the Camp Nou's getting rebuilt at the moment. Yeah.
And then it was over to Rome for their version of the Olympic Stadium, which, I mean, the atmosphere was pretty cool to go and see Lazio. But nothing on Portman Road. But only when we're winning, and we're not doing a lot of that.
I was going to say, I was hoping we'd be discussing the fact that it was a lot better watching us get a win today than going on these foreign climbs. But we're not having to do with that. So. Okay, we'll be back shortly to talk to Phil to get a view from the press box, sense the mood from McKenna. Thanks so much for tuning in to TWTV for this segment. And as always, if you can click the like button and subscribe if you haven't, we'd really appreciate it. And we'll be back shortly. Hello and welcome back to TWTV for our second segment, looking back at Town's 4-2 defeat at home to Nottingham Forest. And I'm joined for a view from the press box by the man behind TWTD, Phil Ham. Welcome, Phil.
Hello.
Here we are again, and we were saying with Kallum earlier, it's cold again, Phil. and our moods are pretty low because
Indeed.
it's looking pretty bleak. So let's get straight into it. What was your take on the game? We've talked about it a little bit with Kallum, but what have you written up in the match report, and what was your view on the game, Phil?
Well, like so many matches, there was not very much in the first 30 minutes. Town given a good account of themselves. But I think you could see that Forest were getting on top. There was one or two chances, wasn't there? There was a cross from Hudson-Odoi that flashed across. I think it actually went behind Alex Palmer.
It did indeed. I remember it well. It was right in front of me.
It probably hit one of the defenders. I think Wolfie and O'Shea both dived in, didn't they? And it probably caught one. So they had been getting on top. And then they got their goal, which Kieran McKenna referred to all three goals as really, really bad goals from Town perspective, particularly the first and the third. But the first one, I think you look at it and it can be defended much better from a number of angles.
It was a bit of a melee, wasn't it? But,
well,
yeah.
I think there was the Dominguez at the far post. I think he was unmarked, and then Delap's header away was poor, and it obviously landed at the fella's feet. But I think you concede a goal, and the cardinal sin after conceding a goal is to concede another one immediately afterwards. And a couple of minutes later, we lose the ball from what was a decent position. We kind of had them in a. There was an opportunity for us. We lose the ball, and one pass later, and Elanga is kind of. You can see why defenders would stand off him, because he's obviously a very talented player, but it gave him enough room to shoot.
Yeah.
And he found the corner of the net, and then of course there was a third goal soon after, which was a real Sunday morning affair, wasn't it? Ball straight down the middle. And that was that, wasn't it, really? It was. You could look at the Manchester City game as being very, very similar to that, Newcastle as well. And you give yourself, it's not even a mountain to climb. The game's over, isn't it? We're not going to score 3 goals against Nottingham Forest without reply. And so I think we'd done all right in that first 30 minutes. I don't really recall too many big... I don't remember their keeper having to make a save. I think Hutchinson had a shot over... Delap headed over, didn't he? So
I think there were 3 moments of threat, but we didn't really carve out the real clear-cut chances.
No.
We got 0 clear-cut chance in the stats. I mean, I think the closest was probably Hutchinson's, which was over the bar, wasn't it, from distance?
Yeah, and I think I was surprised at the way that the forwards lined up. The expectation, I think everyone expected Hutchinson to come back into the team, but probably on the right with Enciso in the middle and Philogene on the left. Philogene sort of prefers playing on the left, I think, and Enciso in the middle, and Hutchinson, I think he probably prefers being in the middle, but obviously he's played on the right an awful lot for us, and I think a lot of people argue that he's played his best football on the right, which there's a fair case for that. But Enciso, I thought first half was completely anonymous. I think that's quite a difficult position anyway, because you've got Leif Davis creating most of the width on the left, haven't you? And then you've obviously got, in this instance, Hutchinson in the middle. And so I think you're not, maybe if you're not used to playing that role, it's a sort of between sort of thing.
Yeah,
I think he found it hard to get anything.
I don't think Enciso was anonymous. He was just making errors when he did get the ball. He did have.
I didn't see him get a lot of the ball.
He was. I think there were 3 moments he was there. I think for me, he made 3 mistakes where he gave the ball away. So he was getting on the ball. But you're right. It didn't seem the right position for him. He was out on the left. I thought we'd brought him in as a number 10. I've just been chatting to Joe Fairs from the Blue Monday team. I've got a little Blue Monday badge after meeting him, and a few other guys in there. And one of the guys we were chatting to, mentioned that actually in the first half, Philogene was making use of being on the right, and he was right out on the right wing, and he was in space.
Yeah,
but again,
on a couple of occasions,
the problem.
Hutchinson didn't find him. That
movement of the ball wasn't quick enough. But he was like on his own. He was obviously been told to go wide, and we didn't use him. And I think that was frustrating.
Kieran mentioned something along those lines, really, that it was the first time that he's used that combination, and that kind of partnerships developing. He hasn't been able to develop partnerships over the season because of injuries and whatever, and players coming in January in the case of Philogene and Ciso. They're all exciting players, aren't they? All 3 of those, and Delap ahead of them. But there's perhaps a bit of a lack of cohesion among them when we've got opportunities to break. But I think that the bigger thing today was the fact that we defended so poorly.
Yeah, I mean,
and gave away goals.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that our three attacking mids have is there's not much physicality.
No.
And you come back to the second goal, where I think you could almost collectively feel the players and the crowd. When that second goal went in, it was like someone has punched us in the stomach, hasn't it? It just, you could see the confidence just evaporating.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think when you're a team that's in the position that we're in, and we've not won matches, and the way that we played in the first 30 minutes or so, I think for a team that's in our position, and to kind of go up against a team that's third in the Premier League, we were taking the game to them, and there was a lot of confidence. I think a surprising amount of confidence. But as soon as there's a kind of downturn in the game, then I think that does, as you say, knocks the wind out of our sails to a degree greater than it would have done last year in the Championship or in League One, because of the kind of the way that the season has progressed.
And they've got what we've lost by losing Ogbene and Burns is we're quite lightweight in that three department, and they had Alanga, didn't they? He's Alanga on the right, and he's just a beast, and he's strong, and
he's terrific.
He made Greaves make an error on the second goal, and he was coming more inside, wasn't he? He wasn't as wide as I expected. He was able to come through. He was almost playing like a Delap type player at times. He was battering through, and it was tough.
Yeah, he was good. And actually, up to the goals, it was Hudson-Odoi had been the main danger, hadn't he, down the left, I think. And he got in time after time down that left-hand side.
Although I will say, I mean, there's a lot of negativity to Philogene in the crowd around me, but I thought actually I thought he was doing quite well with Hudson-Odoi. I mean, he did get past a few times, but he was almost marking him, and he did seem to make him show inside a couple of times. And he's being asked to do a role he's probably not been brought in to do.
Hudson-Odoi. I think, obviously the first goal, I think it was his sort of return cross, wasn't it, after the corner was cleared, I think, and he'd done that a couple of times. He got round the back, didn't he? The incident where the ball went behind Palmer. I just thought we had real struggle with him early on.
That was the cross shot, the cross across the bows, wasn't it? That was the warning sign. That one that you've mentioned a couple of times.
I think there was a number of occasions when people got down between the centre halves. There was a header, wasn't there, at one point fairly early on, I think. So I thought defensively we were kind of a bit all over the place, really. Yeah,
just to summarise up, I thought Cajuste and Phillips were good, weren't they, in the middle overall? But there was a lot of cheap turnover mistakes in that area, central midfield, and pushed up against them. And as you said earlier, you can't make mistakes there against Forest because they just brought it straight back so quickly. And I think, even though Phillips and Cajuste had a good game, they did make a couple of errors, didn't they, as well as Amari and Ciso.
It's very difficult to give a high mark to any of our players.
Who would be your man of the match?
Honestly, I wouldn't give one, really. I don't know. I
thought Palmer made a couple of good saves on the ground.
Well, there again, you could. I think you can point to a lot. I mean, the corner from which the first goal came was him clearing the ball against Cajuste and it going out needlessly for a corner, so you can sort of point to that. And I don't think he made loads of saves because I don't think they had a huge number of real chances. He made a few saves.
I think it was more his getting down to feet where I thought he did quite well today.
He did well coming off his side. He's very good at that side of the game, I think. And I don't think you could sort of say that he was at fault for any of the goals. So maybe Palmer if pushed.
Yeah, I think so. No man of the match, perhaps, but I certainly thought the subs were quite bright when they came on. And at least I thought the Cajuste goal, we came away with something. It was a lovely goal. I thought Clark did well when he came on. Broadcoat came on. Hurst did well, and they combined beautifully, didn't they, for a superb goal from Cajuste. It was a lovely. There was a bit of McKenna ball, wasn't there? I remember Clark came in for our first goal. It was quite some nice play, and it was the subs.
It was quite well worked, and they'd literally just come on, hadn't they? Clark, and it was a nicely taken goal, but it's 82nd minute, we're 3-0 down. So
it's token.
Yes, it was. It's nice to get a goal, but I think actually if Delap had scored with the header he had earlier in the half, then the crowd might have got a bit up, and we might have got. It might have pressed for another goal, in which case it all gets a bit more exciting. But I think it was too late. And then, of course, George Hurst scores a really good header late on. Header. And their fourth goal was just, on the break, 2 against 1. It's the kind of goal that you get in the latter stages of a
Yeah.
game when you're pushing for a goal. And but yes, George Hurst's header I thought was terrific, and it was a great cross from Dara O'Shea.
It was a superb header. You know, it's really hard to get them. It was really right in the corner, hard. A good keeper to beat, basically. Yes. So let's move on. And let's go over across to the forum to. The forum is, I'm sure you'll be reading it later. It's not a happy place tonight,
I can
Phil.
imagine not.
But let's pick out the 3 words from Homer 123 from various posters, and let's start off with the same old story from Len Brennan.
Well, I think there are similarities with a lot of games. I think, the Man City game is the one that immediately sprung to mind, and the fact that we didn't kind of end up losing 6-0 was a positive in a way, but a kind of very minor positive.
Yeah, at least I suppose I did fear at 3-0. I think people around me were, we could be in trouble here.
Yeah,
and I did think it was going to be a
that's true.
capitulation. Interestingly, similarity to Man City, they overloaded our right side with their left a lot, didn't they? That was a similar thing. And I think, yes, I thought Philogene and O'Shea did better than Godfrey did on that day, if you know what I mean. So
it's yes, but yes, just conceding 3 goals in such success. I think that's that killed us completely, didn't it?
Moving on to Bill M, lost the plot. I think he's referring to sort of losing the plot in the game. Did we completely lose our cohesion and shape, or what's your thoughts? Did we go?
I think
completely,
mentally we lost it a bit in that period. I think when teams kind of any team. You go from being competitive into a game and suddenly 3-0 down within 6 minutes, and it's not entirely a surprise when that happens to a team that's in the sort of league position that we're in, is it? And having the results that we've had. So I think it just knocked us sideways, and that's where you need kind of experience, isn't it? In the side, and I think you look through that squad and that team, and it's quite a young team, and perhaps the experienced players in the team are perhaps not the biggest characters. Perhaps.
Yeah, what I liked about Burgess coming on, Phil, and I mentioned this earlier, is he showed leadership as soon as he came on.
Well,
he was dictating and directing around. I thought Phillips stepped up a little bit. He was trying to grab the game by the scruff of its neck, and I think that's that point about having a bit of experience to do that.
Yeah, but they're not. I think Phillips is quite a relatively. I've not met him because he's not done any press with us this year, but he's. I get the impression he's quite a quiet character, and you look throughout that team, it's probably the sort of more vociferous people are people like Delap, who is 22, whatever he is, and I don't think it's the kind of loudest squad, and perhaps you need a bit of that experience and a bit more kind of people are a bit more kind of outgoing and grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck, which again we said was we talked about that at the Man United game, didn't we? Where we had an opportunity and no one really kind of
to be bold
to kind of do what Bruno Fernandes was doing for them.
Yeah, just control. He was superb that night, wasn't he? Okay, a couple more. 1 second half from Gainsborough Blue, and we scored 2 from Lowhouse Blue. I think the game had already gone, hadn't it? Perhaps.
I think it's scant consolation.
Yeah, consolation. Yes. Again, I'm dining out on the Caduce goal a little bit more than perhaps it meant towards the game. Okay, I'm going to combine 2 again. 1 from Tony Bled, Fat Lady Singing. She's maybe already sung and gone home. End it now, Illinois Blue. Illinois Blue, a regular on the forum. I guess it is over probably, bar some miracle. End it now. I think I've definitely seen this on the forum, Phil, which is this kind of this consensus that, look, I just can't wait for September, August to come. Let's pack it in now. I don't want to go anymore. What else can we get out of the season, Phil?
Yeah. I kind of, 9 points plus 16 goal difference and 9 games to go. It does look extremely difficult to get back from here. Kieran in his press conference was quite downcast. I thought probably more downcast than he's been at any stage really, since he's been here. It clearly was one that hurt today, I think, and not just the result, but the fact that I don't think he felt that the players. Well, he did say this. We didn't. I can't think of the exact phrase he used, but he didn't. We're better than that. You know what I mean? I think that was or individually we're better than that. But he did sort of, having kind of talked about it, he admitted, it's a big gap. But, and there's always a but in these things, isn't there? He's looking at the fact that we come back after the international break. We've got 2 games in 4 days. away at Bournemouth and at home to Wolves. And if we win those, we take. The situation looks very different. Well, I mean, it's easy saying that, but Bournemouth away is a very tough game. Wolves at home will be a tough game, and we've only won 3 games all season.
Yeah.
So,
I guess that point about end it now and what do we do for the rest of the season is let's get a win. Do you know what I mean? Let's get a win in 2025. What are we trying to do now?
It's interesting. I mean, I don't know. Is there a bit more freedom when you start to kind of think, well, that's it.
Yeah.
We're already down. And then you could pick up a win, and then suddenly, oh, hang on, it might be back on again.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. But the problem, but you can't look at it. You can't, as the management of the club, look at it in terms of, oh, it's all over.
Yeah.
I think you have to kind of go into each game and think, right, we'll pick up 3 points here, and then we'll pick up 3 points the next game. You've just got to keep on doing what you believe is the right thing to win each individual game, and see where it ends up. But yes, 9 points, very, very, very tough.
Well, useful insights from McKenna there. I think we are better than we were today. I thought with the settled side and the lineup, we might turn up a bit more, but I think player performance was the issue today. Right, let's look around us in the Survival League that maybe we failed in. So unfortunately, as you mentioned earlier, Wolves have beaten fellow or bottom of the table Saints 2-1 away at St Mary's, so that makes the gap, as you said, 9. Just out of interest, it was Bournemouth 1, Brentford 1 when I last looked, which is our next game, as you mentioned. And Leicester play tomorrow at home to Man U. And wouldn't it be good to at least finish above Leicester and Southampton? That's got to be one of the goals.
Yeah, well, I think there's Kieran mentioned in his press conference on Friday that last season everyone was saying how well we were doing to keep up with Leicester, Southampton and Leeds, the 3 teams that had been relegated the previous year. And this year we are actually ahead of Southampton and Leicester, and I think most people would say deservedly. I think that we've been a better side than both of them, regardless of the results against Southampton. Because I think the game down here, we actually were probably better than we dominated more than we did in any of the games.
Against both of them.
Well, so certainly the games against Southampton last year, although we won both of them, I don't think we were as good against them last year as we were in the game down here that we lost. That's just the way that football is sometimes. So I think that there is a positive in that kind of 2 sides that had literally 1 year out of the Premier League and bounced back again we've performed better than them, having made the leap from League One in 2 years. So I think there is something to be said for that. But then again, it's scant again. Because
exactly. But maybe that's one target is let's finish above those 2. So let's just close it out. So our league position is we're 18th. So we're still 2 above those 2 teams. Points is a measly 17. Now, as you said, 9 points away from Wolves, disappointingly. We've only had 3 wins and, only 1 win at home, which is just challenging for the home supporters, I think.
I think if it's 9 points, does that mean Wolves are on 26 points, which I think was what Luton got last year in the final relegation?
Right. Okay. So they're close.
Actually, that may have been, I don't know what their goal difference is compared to Luton last year, but that may well have been enough to keep them up last year.
And then there's still plenty to play. Still nine to go. So we've had 3 wins, 8 draws, and 18 losses. And anyway, so we'll leave it there, Phil. So. Disappointing again, but we really appreciate you tuning in to Video Verdict. We've got a nice break now, 2.5 weeks. Hopefully the weather will get a bit warmer in that time. And we'll be back again after the Bournemouth game. And thank you so much for tuning in. And please, as always, like and subscribe.